right, we got a few questions this week, which we're going to tie into our answers, Perry, on how to pick the right agent. And I could pick 10 more because this is the most common thing you see people asking. First one is we had terrible luck purchasing a home. We think we picked the wrong realtor to work with. She's slow to return calls, not available, and seems out of touch with the market. Help, suggestions, please. Well, first, Fred, Perry and I want to apologize on behalf of sort of the average level of professionalism in the marketplace. And this is not an
deeply sorry.
It's sort of, we have to deal with them every day ourselves. So we get that. And I think you're probably right on track with the idea the next person has, which is, you know, we plan to put our house on the market in late September. Now that the kids are back in school and vacation's over, here's somebody that's actually heeding our advice of being a good time to get on. How do you suggest we find the right agent to help us? And this is what Juanita has asked. So, Perry, as I turn to the next screen, I've got some bullet points here, but would you agree that because Austin is such a unique market, it's very, very low in supply, there's a lot going on in the market, and as a result, right now, it's relatively easy for somebody to take a listing and get a lot of activity on it because supply is so low. And there may be some agents, like we talked about at the beginning of this podcast, that don't have a whole lot of experience, especially with hot markets, because they've gotten into the market so recently that they've never been in a market with multiple offers. I think that's a challenge, don't you?
I do. You know, the first question you asked is, do you work full-time as a real estate agent? I know a lot of first-time agents that say they're full-time, but they have 2 jobs on the side. That can also overwhelm someone who gets a hot price. What if you get a great listing that you know is going to sell? All of a sudden, you get 10 calls on it the first day, and you're working. You can't respond quickly enough. I think
and that is absolutely the first question here. I mean, the real estate business, and I think a lot of consumers don't really get this, and this is why they're puzzled. And you saw the comments of people not calling back or not being available or slow to return calls. And I've seen this in every market, and I've worked in 5 different states over the last 25 years. It's always the same behavior. And what you get if you pick somebody who's part-time versus full-time is usually a different level of transactional experience, which we'll touch on in a minute. But you get this weird behavior where you're getting faxes, calls, and emails after dinner or early in the morning things show up, and then they're unavailable all day. And like you said, they're trying to work around a normal full-time work schedule where they work somewhere else. So what generally does not work well, especially in a fast-paced market like Austin, is to pick a part-time agent. Now, there very well may be some great agents with lots of experience that are part-time, but the challenge will be for any buyer trying to find the right agent in Austin is your likelihood of finding somebody who's got the right mix of skills and experience who's not working full-time is going to be pretty low. Don't you agree, Perry?
I agree with that, sure.
And so you talk about experience level in handling clients like us. Every client's got a little bit different experience. In other words, they're trying to accomplish something different. A first-time home buyer, somebody's moving up, and they're trying to buy in Circle C, so they're trying to buy in a hot market. They've got to sell a house that's probably going to sell if they already live in Circle C, for example, that's going to sell the first weekend it goes on. And there's a little bit of work that needs to occur that takes transactional experience to try and handle them. Some clients have poor life experiences going on where they're a little frustrated and they're getting divorced. There's a different dynamic that goes on there. So I think asking that key question, what's your experience level in handling clients like us? In other words, it could have to do with somebody looking to sell and buy. It could have to do with somebody who's getting a divorce and they're going separate ways and then maybe they don't get along very well. They could be a first-time home buyer and they're going to need more hand-holding. I think that it's important to make sure that agent has some level of experience. And this comes with tenure in the business, that you have more broad experience. But certainly somebody who's never done, for example, buyer representation in a hot market where they've, like the next question asks, handled multiple offers is going to be problematic. In other words, if you were to ask them about handling multiple offers, if they're a buyer, and say, how have you gotten through the process of multiple offers and prevailed for one of your other buyers? Tell us a little bit about how that's worked. The same thing would be true for sellers. Okay, tell me about a listing you put on the market where you were pleasantly surprised and now all of a sudden you had 7 offers. How did you help your seller through that process? Did it work well? What was the end result for your seller?
Right.
I think that's a critical question to ask.
You should be hearing lots of stories about things that they've done in the past. You should be hearing about choices that their previous clients made. Like, Mr. Customer, when we were in this situation last time, what we did was this, or this. I sent them one of the standard responses is the decline to respond document if it was too low. Or if it's this type of property, we did this. And you should hear those stories, and I think comfort is established when you hear how people handle those other things.
Well, and I think that somebody could even go to the point of asking for, tell me something, what's the best lesson you learned in the last 6 months of something that has caught you by surprise because of market conditions? It maybe didn't work out well, but how did you get through the process, and what was the lesson you learned? Because frankly, I think that agents that are able to admit that they're not perfect and sometimes things go awry, they'll learn more from how that agent handled a problem in the transaction as well. Mm-hmm. That either caught them off guard or was problematic, and how it was resolved and they got to the finish line. And what was the lesson learned? Because like you and I both know, having been in the business for many, many years, there's unfortunately lots of things that can potentially go wrong, and you, me, and other professional agents earn our keep by resolving problems. Mm-hmm. It's not enough to say, well, everything always goes great and everything goes well, because you and I both know that's not the case, right?
No way, Jose.
Yeah. So number 4, how do you have a written plan of action for your clients that you can review? A lot of this has to do with listing side versus buy side, but it certainly could apply to the buyer side. In other words, is this agent or Austin Realtor organized enough so that they can, in fact, provide some sort of plan of action? What are they going to do for the client? And do they have a plan? In other words, some agents are just betting on the fact that the market's so hot that they're going to stick a sign in the yard, stick it in the MLS, and it'll be gone, and they don't have to worry about it. They're not planning on doing anything. Then your real big problem as a seller occurs if you're on the market, everything else is selling, you've been there for 3 or 4 weeks, and you're like, well, wait a minute, we haven't had a lot of showings. Then you got to start asking yourself, okay.
Go ahead, I'm sorry, Kevin.
You got to start asking yourself, what is the challenge? And that's where the written plan of action you review in advance is going to be the big differentiator.
And it shouldn't be the 5-step plan where they get out of their car and step 5 steps and start their sign, now it's done.
No, absolutely not. Now,
there are days and times we've had that luxury, but those are like 2000 and 2006. They don't happen every day. You want somebody that says, this is what we're doing, and this is how we're going to do it. And in the next 48 hours, you should expect this. And the next week, you should expect this. This is the type of feedback coming in. As the agent walks in, this is what's happening. That it ties into some sort of feedback system. And you're getting constant responses, and this is our checkpoints along the way to make sure that we're speaking correctly to each other. I think it's just training really kind of shows. The first time training shows is probably in this presentation right here. It's what that person's been trained to do.
I couldn't agree with you more. And I think that asking the question, and we certainly understand that if we talk about the depth of the market, say between 200,000 and 300,000, a number of transactions that occur per year in Austin, the overall market, it's different than if you look at the number of transactions that occur at the higher price points. So like the luxury home market. But